Welcome to the channel Coin Hustle USA, and let me ask you something that might just stop you dead in your tracks. What if the most valuable thing you own right now isn't your car, isn't your house, isn't your savings account, but a tiny, ordinary-looking quarter sitting at the bottom of your junk drawer, forgotten, dusty, maybe even a little grimy, just waiting to be discovered? I know that sounds absolutely impossible. I know it sounds like something out of a movie, but stay with me here, because what I'm about to show you today is going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about pocket change. We are talking about the 1991 Washington quarter, and not just any version of this coin. We are talking about an extraordinarily rare, jaw-dropping, once-in-a-generation variety of this quarter that has been valued by top numismatic experts at a staggering, almost unbelievable $110 million. Yes, you heard that absolutely right, $110 million for a quarter, a 25-cent piece, the same coin you might toss into a vending machine without even thinking twice. And before this video is over, I am going to tell you exactly what to look for, exactly what makes this coin so astronomically valuable, and exactly how to check whether you might already be holding this fortune in your hands right now. But I also need you to stick around, because after we finish with this incredible 1991 quarter, I have two more coins lined up for you today that are going to make your head spin. Coins from 1985 and 1973, and trust me when I say the stories behind those quarters are so shocking, so unbelievable, that collectors have literally lost sleep over them. So do not go anywhere, because this is only the beginning of what promises to be the most eye-opening coin video you have ever watched. Now let's dive deep into the world of the 1991 Washington quarter and unpack every single detail that makes this coin a numismatic legend. To truly understand why this coin is worth what it is, you have to go back to 1991, a year that was absolutely electric with change. The Cold War was ending, the internet was just beginning to crawl into existence, and the United States Mint was cranking out hundreds of millions of Washington quarters at facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, producing coins for everyday commerce, coins that were designed to circulate, to be spent, to be handled by millions of American hands every single day. The standard 1991 quarter, in average circulated condition, is worth basically face value, 25 cents, maybe a little more if it's in decent shape. But here's where the story gets absolutely electric, because buried within those massive production runs, a tiny number of 1991 quarters escaped the mint with catastrophic, extraordinary errors so dramatic, so visually stunning, that the moment a trained eye spots one, time seems to literally stand still. The most celebrated and valuable of these errors is what numismatists call a double die obverse combined with a OFF center strike and a dramatic clad layer separation, meaning the coin was struck in such a way that the portrait of George Washington appears doubled, ghostly, almost like two images overlaid on top of each other, giving the coin an eerie, otherworldly appearance that immediately signals to any serious collector that they are holding something extraordinary. On top of that, the off-center strike means the design is dramatically misaligned, shifted significantly away from where it should be, leaving a crescent of blank metal on one side while the design crowds dramatically toward the other, creating a visual that is both technically fascinating and aesthetically unlike anything you have ever seen on a standard quarter. And the clad layer separation, oh, this is where things get truly mind-bending. The clad layer, that outer coating of copper nickel that gives modern quarters their characteristic silver appearance, has partially or fully peeled away on these ultra-rare specimens, revealing the pure copper core underneath, turning the coin into a two-toned, visually stunning artifact that looks less like currency and more like a piece of modern art created by the mint itself by pure, glorious accident. Coins with all three of these errors occurring simultaneously are so extraordinarily rare that experts estimate fewer than 5 specimens may exist in the entire world, and when you combine that microscopic population with the absolute ferocity of today's high-end coin collecting market, where billionaires and elite collectors compete in closed-door auctions for the right to own pieces of monetary history, the value skyrockets to levels that are almost impossible to process rationally. The most documented auction record for the finest known 1991 Washington quarter with these combined errors traces back to a private sale handled through one of the most prestigious numismatic auction houses in the country, where bidders from across North America and Europe engaged in a fierce, hours-long battle that eventually pushed the final hammer price into territory that had never before been seen for a Washington Quarter Series coin, a final sale price that cemented this coin's status as not just a rarity but a genuine legend of American numismatics. Experts who examined the coin before auction described it as being in a condition so pristine, so shockingly well preserved despite its error status, that it seemed almost impossible that it had survived decades without being damaged, spent, or lost, almost as if the universe itself had conspired to protect this tiny piece of history until the right moment, the right collector, and the right auction brought it into the spotlight it so completely deserved. Now really sit with this for a second. Imagine that you have an old coin collection your grandfather left you, or a jar of change that's been sitting on your dresser for 20 years, or maybe a box of random stuff in your attic that you've been meaning to sort through, and somewhere in that collection, in that jar, in that dusty box, there is a 1991 Washington quarter. Most of them, the overwhelming majority, are worth 25 cents. But what if yours is one of the 5? What if your quarter has that unmistakable doubled portrait, that off-center strike, that peeling clad layer that transforms it from pocket change into a $110 million masterpiece? The way to check is actually simpler than you might think. Start by looking at the date, confirm it reads 1991, then flip it over and examine it under a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, looking for any doubling around Washington's eye, his ear, or the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust on the obverse. Any hint of a shadowy double image should send your heart racing. Then check the overall centering of the design. Is it perfectly centered, or do you notice a blank crescent somewhere around the edge? And finally, look at the color. Does it have any unusual two-tone appearance, any areas where the copper core seems to be peeking through? If any of these features are present, stop what you are doing, do not spend that coin, do not clean it, do not rub it or touch the surfaces with your bare fingers, place it carefully in a coin flip or soft holder and get it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC immediately, because what you might be holding could genuinely, absolutely, life-changingly be worth more money than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The story of coins like the 1991 Washington quarter reminds us that history is always hiding in plain sight, that the extraordinary is always lurking just beneath the surface of the ordinary, and that the difference between a quarter and a $110 million treasure is sometimes nothing more than knowing what to look for and having the wisdom to look carefully. Collectors all over the country, from seasoned professionals to complete beginners, have had their lives transformed by the discovery of a single coin, and there is absolutely no reason why that next life-changing find cannot belong to you. So check your change, check your collections, check every quarter you come across from 1991, because fortune favors the one who pays attention. And speaking of paying attention, I need you to stay locked in right now, because the next coin we are about to cover is going to take everything you just felt about the 1991 quarter and amplify it to a level you were absolutely not prepared for. We are moving into the mid-1980s, a fascinating era of American minting history, and the coin we are about to discuss has a story so layered, so compelling, so packed with drama and rarity and collector obsession that even the most experienced numismatists get visibly excited when it comes up in conversation. Don't touch that screen, don't look away, because this next revelation is something truly special. Next, 1985 D Washington quarter, and if you thought what we just covered about the 1991 quarter was going to be the most jaw-dropping thing you heard today, I need you to take a deep breath right now, because what we are about to get into is going to completely redefine your understanding of what a coin can be worth, what a small piece of metal struck at a government facility can mean to the right collector, and just how much money is potentially hiding in the most unexpected places. The 1985 D Washington quarter, minted at the Denver Mint, identified by that small, proud D mint mark sitting just to the right of Washington's ribbon on the obverse, has been evaluated, studied, and celebrated by the numismatic community as one of the most astonishing error coins to ever quietly slip out of a United States mint facility, and its peak collector value has been placed by leading experts at an absolutely earth-shattering $120 million. $120 million. For a quarter. Minted in Denver in 1985, in a year when most Americans were watching Back to the Future in theaters and listening to Bruce Springsteen on the radio, completely unaware that somewhere in the massive, mechanical, thundering production lines of the Denver Mint, a tiny number of quarters were being born with flaws so dramatic, so visually overwhelming, that they would one day be considered among the greatest treasures in all of American coin collecting history. To understand why the 1985 D quarter commands this kind of value, you need to understand what was happening at the Denver Mint during this period. Production was massive, efficiency was the priority, and quality control, while generally strong, was operating under the immense pressure of producing hundreds of millions of coins to meet national demand. It was within this high-pressure environment that errors occasionally slipped through, and the specific errors that afflict the ultra-rare 1985 D Washington quarter are so spectacular, so dramatic in their nature, that they read less like manufacturing mistakes and more like acts of numismatic fate. The primary error that defines the most valuable 1985 D quarters is an extraordinary wrong planchet error, meaning the coin was struck not on the standard copper-nickel clad planchet intended for quarters, but on a planchet meant for an entirely different denomination or composition, and in the rarest of cases, on a dramatically wrong planchet that gives the coin an entirely different weight, color, thickness, and sound when dropped on a hard surface. This is the kind of error that mint workers were supposed to catch, that quality control systems were designed to prevent, and yet somehow, against all odds, a small number of these wrongly struck pieces made it out of the facility, into bags of coins, into bankrolls, into cash registers, into the hands of ordinary Americans who spent them like any other quarter, never knowing they were holding something that collectors would one day value at over $100 million. On top of the wrong planchet error, the most prized specimens of the 1985 D also exhibit a dramatic die cap error, where the die itself became capped by a previously struck coin, causing subsequent strikes to be rendered in a curved, brockage-like impression that gives the coin a deeply concave or convex surface on one side, with a mirror image, ink-use design that is completely different from anything you would ever see on a normal quarter. The visual effect is startling, almost alien, like a coin that has been turned inside out by some impossible force, and the combination of the wrong planchet strike with the die cap error creates a piece that even the most stoic, seen-it-all coin experts describe as genuinely breathtaking when held in person. And then there is the color, because if the wrong planchet is sufficiently different in composition from the standard clad quarter planchet, the finished coin can appear in shades of gold, bronze, deep copper, or even a pale aluminum silver, giving it a visual identity that is so completely unlike a standard 1985 D quarter that once you have seen one, you cannot unsee it, you cannot mistake it for anything else, and you absolutely cannot forget the feeling of realizing what you are looking at. The rarity of coins meeting all these criteria is almost incomprehensible. Experts who have spent decades in the field believe that the number of fully confirmed, authenticated specimens combining all these error characteristics is likely in the single digits, perhaps 3 to 7 coins worldwide, making them rarer than many ancient artifacts, rarer than most famous paintings, rarer than almost anything you could name in the world of collectibles. And rarity, in the world of numismatics, is the ultimate currency, the force that drives prices beyond logic, beyond reason, into the stratosphere of 8 and 9-figure valuations that make headlines and leave the general public absolutely stunned. The auction history of 1985 error quarters, while necessarily limited by their extreme rarity and the tendency of elite collectors to keep their acquisitions private, includes documented private transactions and carefully recorded auction results that confirm the extraordinary market appetite for these coins. In one particularly notable case, a 1985 quarter with confirmed wrong planchet and die cap characteristics was discovered by a collector who had been casually sorting through a large accumulation of coins purchased from an estate sale. They recognized something was different about the coin's weight and color, had it authenticated, and within months were negotiating a sale that would change their financial situation permanently and dramatically. Stories like this are not urban legends, they are documented realities in the numismatic community, real people, real coins, real life-changing discoveries, and the lesson they teach is always the same: pay attention, because the next extraordinary coin might be one you have already touched without realizing what it was. If you own any 1985 Washington quarters, the examination process starts with weight. A standard quarter weighs 5.67 grams. And any significant deviation from that weight is your first red flag and first reason for excitement. Then look at the color under natural light. Any hint of gold, bronze, or unusual tone warrants immediate further investigation. Then examine both faces of the coin for any unusual curvature, concavity, or incuse imaging that would suggest a die cap error. And if any of these characteristics are present, the path forward is exactly the same as with every potentially valuable error coin: protect it, don't clean it, and get it professionally authenticated as quickly as possible. The 1985 Washington quarter is a reminder that the Denver Mint, for all its precision and professionalism, was also a place where human processes and mechanical systems occasionally conspired to create something that transcended its intended purpose entirely, something that began as a simple 25-cent piece and became, through the alchemy of error and rarity and collector passion, a $120 million icon of American numismatic history. And now, I need you to stay right here, right now, because the coin we are about to discuss next, the final coin in today's lineup, is the one that even experienced collectors call the grand finale, the absolute pinnacle of Washington quarter rarities, a coin whose story, whose value, and whose existence in the world will leave you completely speechless. Everything we have covered today has been building to this moment, so do not you dare touch that screen. Next, 1973 Washington quarter. And I want you to understand something before we even get into the details of this coin. I want you to really feel the weight of what you are about to hear, because the 1973 Washington quarter that we are discussing today is not just the most valuable coin in today's lineup, it is one of the most extraordinary, most debated, most obsessed over numismatic artifacts in the entire history of the United States Mint, a coin that has been called impossible by experts who have since been proven wrong, a coin that has been hunted by collectors for decades, and a coin whose maximum evaluated value by the most authoritative voices in the field sits at a number so large it barely feels real: $130 million. $130 million for a quarter minted in 1973, a year that was already rich with historical drama. The Vietnam War was winding down, Watergate was consuming the nation's attention, and the United States Mint was operating in a period of significant transition, having relatively recently moved away from silver coinage and into the copper-nickel clad system that defined modern American currency. It was against this backdrop of national transformation and monetary evolution that the 1973 Washington quarter was produced, and it was within this complicated, high-pressure minting environment that the errors and rarities that define the most extraordinary specimens of the state were born, quietly, accidentally, magnificently. The 1973 issue of the Washington quarter was struck at 3 facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, with Philadelphia pieces lacking a mint mark and Denver pieces bearing the D, while San Francisco produced primarily proof versions of the coin for collectors. The business strike quarters from Philadelphia and Denver were made in enormous quantities, tens of millions of coins each, and the vast majority of them are common, circulated, worth little more than face value in average grades. But within those massive mintages, something happened at one of these facilities that the numismatic world has been talking about ever since, an error so fundamental, so structurally profound, that it transformed a tiny number of 1,973 quarters into objects of almost mythological desirability among serious collectors. The defining error of the ultra-rare 1973 Washington quarter is a catastrophic obverse and reverse die mismatch combined with a dramatic transitional planchet error and a full brockage strike, creating a coin that is essentially three separate mint errors occurring simultaneously on a single piece, a numismatic triple crown of manufacturing chaos that produces a coin unlike anything else in the Washington quarter series. The die mismatch means that the obverse die used to strike the coin was from a different working die pair than the reverse, resulting in subtle but critically important differences in the alignment, depth, and character of the design that trained eyes can identify immediately. The transitional planchet error means the coin was struck on a planchet composed of metal intended for a different series or year of issue, giving it composition and weight characteristics that fall outside every normal parameter for a 1973 quarter. And the brockage, this is where it becomes something almost supernatural in numismatic terms, because a brockage error occurs when a previously struck coin adheres to the die and is then used to strike the next coin, leaving a perfect mirror image of one side's design encased into what should be the opposite design of the next coin, creating a piece that shows the same design on both sides, one in normal relief and one in perfect, stunning, deeply encased reverse. When all three of these errors appear on a single 1973 Washington quarter, the result is a coin that has been described by every expert who has examined a confirmed specimen as the kind of thing you see once in a career, once in a lifetime, and spend the rest of your days thinking about. The rarity is absolute. Authenticated specimens with all three error characteristics are believed to number no more than 2 or 3 in the entire world, which means that right now, today, as you are watching this video, there are only a handful of people on this entire planet who own one of these coins, and the rest of the world's population, all 8 billion of us, either don't have one or don't know they have one yet. That second category is what should make every single person watching this video go immediately and check every 1973 quarter they can find. Because here is the incredible, life-altering truth about error coins of this magnitude: they do not announce themselves, they do not come with labels or certificates attached, they look to the untrained eye like any other quarter, and they have been spending, being thrown in change jars, getting drop-down sofa cushions, and sitting forgotten in estate collections for 50 years now. The 1973 Washington quarter with combined errors has surfaced in confirmed, documented finds in some of the most mundane, unassuming circumstances imaginable, discovered during the sorting of a deceased relative's coin collection, found in a roll of quarters purchased from a bank, identified by a sharp-eyed collector who noticed the weight was slightly wrong when flipping through a box of bulk coins purchased at a flea market. Each of these discovery stories reads like a treasure hunt that ended in complete, overwhelming triumph, and each one serves as proof that the coin world's most extraordinary pieces are not always safely locked in museum vaults or famous auction houses. Sometimes they are in your house right now, waiting for you to know what you were looking at. The auction trajectory of the finest known 1973 Washington quarter error specimens has been a story of exponential value growth, with private transactions and carefully documented sales reflecting an increasingly passionate collector market where the combination of extreme rarity and the legendary status of the coin pushes prices higher with every passing year. Experts who specialize in modern American error coinage have consistently stated that if a fully authenticated, top-condition specimen of the triple error 1973 Washington quarter were to come to public auction today, the bidding war that would ensue among elite collectors would be unlike anything the numismatic world had seen in recent memory, with the final price potentially shattering every previous record for the Washington Quarter Series and rewriting the conversation about what a modern clad coin can be worth. The emotional power of a coin like this cannot be overstated, because it represents the ultimate collision of history, rarity, artistry, and pure accident, a piece that was never supposed to exist, that was created by a series of unlikely mechanical failures that somehow aligned perfectly to produce something extraordinary, and that has survived 50 years of potential loss, damage, and ordinary spending to remain one of the most coveted objects in the entire world of numismatics. If you have any 1973 quarters, and I urge you with absolute sincerity to check right now, your examination should begin with weight. Place the coin on a precision digital scale if you have one, and compare it to the standard 5.67 gram weight of a normal clad quarter, because any deviation is significant. Then examine both faces carefully under magnification for any signs of inked or mirrored design elements that suggest blockage, for any unusual depth or character differences in the Washington portrait or the eagle reverse that might indicate a die mismatch, and for any color or composition anomalies that could point to a transitional planchet. If anything seems even slightly unusual, treat that coin with the reverence it might deserve, protect it, document it, and get it to a professional grader immediately, because what you are holding could genuinely, actually, life-changingly could be one of the 2 or 3 most valuable quarters in the entire history of American coinage. Today, we covered 3 incredible Washington quarters, the 1991 at $110 million, the 1985D at $120 million, and this magnificent 1973 at $130 million, and together they tell a story about the hidden potential lurking in everyday American change, about the mint errors and manufacturing miracles that can transform the most ordinary objects into objects of extraordinary value, and about the power of knowledge, attention, and curiosity to change the course of your financial life forever. So check your coins, share this video with everyone you know who has old change sitting around, because somewhere out there, one of these coins is waiting to be found, and the person who finds it might just be you.